Hello everybody and welcome. We just went ahead and finished Final Fantasy VII Remake. I know I'm a little bit late to this one, but I'm finally caught up with everything. Like I've said before, it took me 122 hours and an entire month to beat Persona 5 Royal, and then I've literally just been playing catch up. I played RE3, and then I went to Final Fantasy VII Remake. So I've just been playing catch up. We're finally caught up, and I'll finally be able to play Last of Us 2 when that drops. I'll be playing that day one so I can get the review out as fast as possible on that. But Final Fantasy VII Remake. This game took me about 35 hours to complete, which is a little bit on the long side. I've heard some people have beaten it in as short as 27 hours, some as long as 40. So I got 35. Personally, I was taking my time. I did every single side quest in the game. I did everything possible, walked around, listened to NPCs, fucking talked to random dudes. I did it all, dude. So I am finally ready to review this game. Now let me get my biases out real quick though, just so we're all clear. Final Fantasy VII Classic is one of, I believe, only 3 games that I have rage quit and uninstalled on stream. I played 11 hours of Final Fantasy VII Classic, and I absolutely despised it. I despised the gameplay. I hated it with all of my being, and I could not bring myself to finish it. The story did not interest me enough, the characters did not interest me enough to go through that terrible, terrible dated combat. I just couldn't do it. I know some people are fans, but that's my bias out of the way. I absolutely hate Final Fantasy VII Classic. And I was totally ready for this game to get like a revamped treatment. I was super excited for the remake after playing the demo and thoroughly enjoying it. So let's get into this review. I'm going to give you my pros on the game, and then we'll touch on the cons, and then I'll give you my final score. So, pros. Let me just say, first of all, this review is going to sound repetitive because, like, this review could be titled Final Fantasy VII Remake, the definition of hit and miss. Like, this game has so many hits and misses. Sometimes this game is a 10 out of 10. Like, seriously, some of the most fun I've had in a long time playing a game, and sometimes it's a 1 out of 10. So I'm going to touch on that, and you're gonna hear that a lot, is sometimes this is great, other times this is doo-doo, right? So let's get into it. It kind of reminds me of Sekiro in that way, where sometimes Sekiro was 10 out of 10 game for me, but unfortunately, most of the time it was like a 2 or a 3 out of 10 for me, and that brought the score down a lot. Luckily though, Final Fantasy VII Remake, for me, is a lot more 10 out of 10s than 1 out of 10s. So, let's talk about the first hit and miss, and that's the graphics. Yo, the graphics at some points, especially like the main characters, is 10 out of 10 stuff, especially when you consider the hardware that this is running on. The characters look so good, and especially when you get those cutscenes, ooh, it looks fantastic. Some parts of the world look really good, but as you've probably heard by now, there are some absolute 1 out of 10 PS2 graphics in this game. Apparently, this is going to be remedied when the PC version is released. Apparently they have like 4K textures and stuff like that that's going to be applied across the board on PC, but on PS4 playing on the Pro, there are some PS2 graphics. Things as simple as Cloud's apartment door, which is in a ton of scenes, literally looks like they spent about 3 seconds making it. They zoom into flowers in a lot of shots and they look straight out of PS2 graphics. I'm like, dude, do not show those, do not zoom into those. So sometimes this game can look great, other times it can look absolutely terrible. This is also seen in the characters. Like I said, main characters look phenomenal. Side characters look like they're just fucking thrown together in Oblivion's fucking random character generator. It looks really bad on a lot of them. Not all of them, but a lot of them. So, like I said, hit and miss with the graphics. Next up, talk about a hit though, the voice acting. This voice acting is amazing. I played the game in English, and there was not a single ball dropped by any of the characters. They did something really unique, which is have brand new voice actors do some of the characters. Like I believe Aerith is a brand new voice actress, and they absolutely kill it, dude. The delivery from everyone is spot on. I have literally zero complaints about the voice acting. It is phenomenal. And the next thing, talking about some audio, right, is the music. I mean, you can hear the main theme right here going off. The music is just mesmerizing most of the time. This is another hit and miss. Most of the time, the music is amazing, and it's so nice to hear those remix tracks from the original Final Fantasy VII because they are still bangers today. They are still phenomenal soundtracks, and it's just so nice to hear them in high quality. But some of the new songs, especially like when they try and put in some electronic songs, I think that's where it falls short. Some of these new electronic songs that have been added in, especially when you're dealing with some robot arms in a tunnel in one of the sections of the game, the song is terrible. It is literally terrible. I never wanted to go to that area because the song is absolute doo-doo. It's hit and miss, but I would say 95% of the soundtrack is a solid hit, fucking home run. Really, really, really good. The characters. One of the things that I did not like at all in the classic, and I don't understand how anybody liked, was the characters. I did not like a single character other than Red 13 in the 11 hours that I played a Final Fantasy VII Classic. I did not like them. They were very one note. They did not have a lot of room for fleshing out. Cloud was just a total dick in that game, at least at the very first 11 hours of the game, which is about like a third of the game that I played. It's just doo-doo. Just doo-doo, in my opinion, in the classic. But in this game, every single character shines. They're all so good. There's layers to them. A lot of the bad guys are not really bad, and you can actually see where they're coming from, and you kind of like some of them even. And all of the good guys are just phenomenal, dude. I love all of them. Cloud is not an asshole in this game, which is great. He cracks some jokes. He really starts to open up and become more compassionate towards, like chapter 5, chapter 6 into the game. And I really liked every single character. Of course, Tifa is the one and only waifu, even though I am a little bit partial to Jessie because it's the same voice actress as Futaba, and we all know I love Futaba in Persona 5, but these characters are fantastic. I mean, I just wish there were more like individual missions with them so you could hang out with all of them. I would really, really love that, but I adored the characters in this game more than I ever did in the classic. And, you know, when you have really good characters and you have a world like this, it gets really immersive, man. Like, this world is extremely immersive, especially because they do something that Outer Worlds, which was my personal game of the year last year, I love the Outer Worlds, but one thing that I said that it was missing was when you go into a room, there's all these people in the room, right? You walk into a bar and there's a ton of people drinking at the bar, but you don't hear any side conversations. The world just feels dead because of that, and a lot of times. In this game, it does it in spades, better than any game I have ever seen. There are so many side conversations going off, so many lines of dialogue that they recorded, just tons and tons of NPCs interacting with each other, talking about events in the world. This world feels more alive than almost anything that I've played in recent memory. It feels fantastic. Usually it's another hit and miss type of thing, but I'll touch back on the negatives when we get into that. But for the most part, a very immersive world. I thoroughly enjoyed being in Midgar. The combat, talk about another hit and miss. It's fantastic, very satisfying. Usually there's a couple areas where the combat is doo-doo. And we'll touch on that when we get into the cons, but for the most part, I would say about 90% of the combats is absolutely awesome. I loved it. The boss fights are almost all really, really, really good. Like these little teeny fights that you have in Final Fantasy VII Classic are now these huge set pieces, and they're just really fun. You figure out the enemy's weak points, you get everybody together, hitting those weak points, fucking putting the pressure on them, and it just feels really, really good. Slowly but surely chipping away at this guy, and they do a good job of giving the boss fights different phases so that you don't really get bored of one phase and then, you know, it's just the same thing over and over. They really spice it up. If you played the demo, you know what I'm talking about. You can expect that throughout the entire game of just spicing it up, keeping it fresh. You're taking down limbs, you're taking down all sorts of shit. They're almost all great, except for the last chapter. The last chapter has a lot of boss fights. No spoilers, of course. There's a lot of boss fights in the last chapter. But I really only think the last one is very good. The other ones were not good at all. And the second to last one is this really, really long fight with like tons of cutscenes and stuff. But if you die in it, like if you die on the last part of that boss fight, and it's a very long boss fight, there is no checkpoint. You literally have to restart the entire fight from the beginning. It is insane. I thought I messed something up. I looked back on stream and I was like, no, I picked the right thing. It is crazy. It's absolutely crazy. So I have no idea what they were thinking when they did that. There's tons of cutscenes that are unskippable and shit, so try not to die in the last chapter or you're in for a bad time. But other than that, boss fights are really good. Combat is fantastic. Another thing that I was really surprised about is that this game on the PS4 Pro runs at a solid ass 30 FPS. I did not see this game drop a single time. It seemed like it was constant 30. Now, it is a little bit unfortunate that it's locked 30, and on the PS4 Pro, you have no way of customizing that. There's no, you know, varying resolution to try and get, you know, 40, 50, 60 FPS. There's none of that. You just have to be stuck at 30. I don't know what the resolution does, but at least it's a solid 30, right? I wish that we weren't in 2020 and we were still playing games in 30 FPS. It blows my mind, since for over a decade now, I've had a PC capable of playing, you know, 1080p, 60 FPS games. It blows my mind that we're still at this point, but luckily PS5's right around the corner and this game is getting a PC port, so it'll be nice to see this game fully up-res playing in 60 FPS, but at least it's a solid 30, so, you know, is what it is. And also, there's not a lot of traditional load screens. There's very minimal load screens, and when they do happen, they are in between chapters, and they're not very long at all. And I don't even have an SSD, I just have the regular PS4 Pro, so that's really cool to see. And that'll about do it for the pros. Now I'll go ahead and get into the cons. This will kind of be tying into a lot of the pros when I said, you know, hit or miss, but let's get into it. And since there were so many things, I'm not reading from a script if you see me referencing this. I just have a list of pros and cons to make sure I touched on everything, because there's a lot of stuff that I wanted to talk about. So anyway, we kind of touched on the PS2 level graphics at some point. It is a little bit of a bummer to see, and it can take you out of the world, but it's not that big of a deal because the world is just so immersive, like I said, that it's sure you'll see a PS2 graphic, or you'll see a really, really badly drawn, like 2D version of the city when you look out into the horizon, and you can clearly tell like it's not that good of a drawing and they were hoping nobody would really look at it. But you know, it's not that big of a deal, to be entirely honest. I'm just really excited to see it on PC, so hopefully we can get those up-res textures and everything. What I would say though, we talked about the combat. Combat is good 95% of the time. However, when you're fighting aerial enemies, the combat just goes out the fucking window. It goes terribly. If you're locked on, which you should be in this game, because when you lock onto an enemy, your entire party attacks that enemy. And so you want to be locked on, so you want everybody, you know, attacking the same dude. Unfortunately, when you're locked onto an aerial enemy, if they fly too high, which they frequently do, you are just fucked. Like, you can't look up that high, so you have to unlock, and then your party's attacking just every enemy. It's really annoying. On top of that, it is so shitty there's actually sections in this game where you have to fight flying enemies without a ranged character. And when that's the case, this is literal like 2 out of 10 combat. It is awful. It is so bad because you have to build up your ATB gauge in order to use spells. Spells are the only way that you're going to hit a enemy in the air as a melee character, right? And the only way to charge up that ATB is to hit them with your regular attack. So you have to run under them, jump up. Like with Cloud, you can only do a 3-hit combo before you fall down. Just and then you have to pray to God that you have an ATB. And for some goddamn reason, some idiot in the design team thought it would be a good idea to make practically all of the flying enemies weak to wind. Well, Zach, why is that an issue? Well, just cast the wind spell. The problem with the wind spell is you throw it, it goes to where they are, and then there's a delay. There's like a 1-second delay before it explodes and does the wind damage. Now that's an issue because these motherfuckers are not standing still, bro. They're fucking coming in, dive bombing you and shit. And it is so frustrating, man, when you finally build up enough ATB to throw out a fucking wind spell, which is what they're weak to, and then they just fly away from it before it explodes. Dude, it is infuriating. It is so infuriating. I got so frustrated at several points in the game when they make you fight these flying enemies that are weak to wind, and they're fucking flying, and you're a melee character, dude. It is actually awful. It is legitimately terrible. What I found to be the best remedy is to equip the elemental materia, which allows your weapon to do wind damage, and then just jump up and swing at them until it's over. But it's terrible, dude. It's actually terrible. The combat goes from 10 out of 10, super satisfying when you're fighting everybody and comboing and utilizing all of your skills together on the ground, to a 2 out of 10. Shitty ass game experience. Sometimes the enemy will just literally fly like past some railings, so you can't even jump up and attack them. It is doo-doo. But luckily, fortunately enough, most of the game you do have a ranged companion, so that definitely helps. But yeah, talk about hit or miss, right? Sometimes it's just so 10 out of 10 perfect, especially in the boss fight, so good, and then you're fucking fighting a flying guy and you're like, well, shit. Just hope to God that you're not building a bruiser character that just does physical damage, or else you're gonna be in for a goddamn bad time when you come across those guys. Very, very frustrating. Speaking of that, the game is super duper easy. I played on normal mode, which is the hardest difficulty until you beat the game. And it's very, very easy. I didn't really have issues with many parts, but when I did have issues, there is a noticeable difficulty spike. You'll be fucking owning everything, not really having much issues, and then out of nowhere there's just 2 fucking missile turrets and 2 flamethrower guys, and they just shit down your goddamn throat, and you're like, well, okay, let's try that a couple more times. It's just really random. The difficulty spikes, they don't tend to make a lot of sense, but I would say for the most part the game is very easy. If I enjoyed the game more and it wasn't so padded, I'd definitely play through on hard mode just to experiment with it, but I'm not going to do that. To be entirely honest, I'm not. Speaking of reasons why I'm not going to play it again, hidden loading screens. We talked about how there's no conventional loading screens, or very little, just in between chapters. The reason for that is because there's 9 fucking billion hidden loading screens. If you don't know what I mean by hidden loading screens, they are moments in video games where they purposefully slow your character down so that they can load shit that's coming up. There are so many in this game, and it may just seem like a nitpicky thing, right? Like, oh, he's just nitpicking. Listen. After 35 hours, a little thing happening over and over and over and over and over and over and over? See how that's getting annoying as I'm saying and over and over and over and over? Well, imagine that in-game for several seconds at a time. If you were to add up every single hidden loading screen, God, I hope somebody does it on YouTube. I really do. you would get over 30 minutes. I guarantee you a minimum of 30 minutes. Fucking balancing on beams, fucking slowly crawling under shit, fucking squeezing in between cracks, fucking climbing shit, fucking standing in elevators. They do it all, dude. They do it all. And it is always obvious, it is always apparent. Make you walk super slow just for some reason. You're just walking. You can't even run. Just super slow walking. It is doo-doo. It gets really frustrating by the end of the game, just all of those hidden. I understand why they do it. I hope it's not in the PC fucking version. Like, they could literally just get rid of all of that in the PC version, because trust me, my SSDs will blow right through it. You don't have to worry about those hidden load screens, okay? I hope they're not there on PC, but on PS4 Pro they are, and it is very, very annoying. Not a huge thing, but there's at least 30 minutes of your life you're gonna waste fucking balance beaming and shit. Another thing that I really wish was better is the side quests. There are side quests in this game. There's 3 different points in the game where you can do side quests, and the side quests are fucking shit. There's no way around it. I haven't heard anybody say that they were good. I've never met that human being. I don't think I will. They're shit. I understand, like, if you're a super, you know, Final Fantasy fan, I've seen Advent Children 72 times, and I have 700 hours in Final Fantasy VII Classic, and I've already beat the remake 14 times, and on top of that, I've played fucking Crisis Core 43 times. Like, listen, dude, I get it if you're a fucking super fan and you're just happy to be in this world a little bit longer, but for the rest of us normal human beings, which is how I'm reviewing this, as a normal human being that doesn't have that nostalgia relation with Final Fantasy VII Remake, because if you do have that nostalgia relation, this game's gonna be a 10 out of 10 for you. I mean, there's no doubt about that. This isn't for those people, obviously, because those people have probably already played the game, let's be real. But for you regular people, the side quests are fucking shit. There's literally a side quest in the game that's just a little girl and she's like, hey, find my 3 cats. And then you go around and you have to fucking, they're scared of you. So then you have to chase them down. It's not funny. There's no jokes or anything. It's just annoying. And the worst part is, almost every single side quest is like that. They're like the beginner MMO side quests, bro, where it's like slay 3 boars. That's what it's like in this game. It is fucking doo-doo. Except for 3. There are 3 side quests that are legitimately very good, and I thoroughly enjoyed them. And the majority of them are in the last section, the last time that you get to do side quests. There were 2 really good ones because they were tied to 2 awesome fights, and I thoroughly enjoyed those. I thoroughly enjoyed 3 of the side quests. But the thing that is really annoying is that the side quests in the game are actually mandatory depending on if you want a scene later in the game. So, depending on your choices throughout the game, as well as if you did all of the side quests, you will get a differing scene at one of the parts in the game. And if you want that scene with a certain character, then you have to do the side quest. So it's not even really an optional thing. Unless you want a pretty shitty scene. But the side quests are doo-doo, dude. There's no arguing around it. They're doo-doo. Really not a fan of it. It just feels like padding to make the game longer. It doesn't feel like they took any time on them. And speaking of padding, this game is full of padding. This is by far my biggest complaint in the game. The reason that I'm actually detracting points from the game. So much padding, dude. And, you know, the argument could be said that because I played Final Fantasy VII Classic, I'm aware of, oh, this normally takes like 4 scenes in the Classic, and now it's an hour and a half of gameplay. The argument could be made there for that, but I talked to Eddie, he's a moderator on the channel, he's never played the Classic at all, and he actually noticed the padding as well. So I think it's a fair assessment to say there is padding in this game. There are entire chapters that do not need to be as long as they are, and even shit in the chapters is purposefully longer. Even take out the hidden load screens, right? Let me give you a couple non-spoiler examples, okay? There's a section in the game where you have to go up an elevator. Well, in order to go up the elevator, you have to get power for the elevator. In order to get power for the elevator, you need to turn off 3 lights. In order to turn off 3 lights, you have to fight through countless enemies. And then on top of that, you need to move all of these other elevators so you can cross the elevators to turn off the lights to get power to the elevator. It is so annoying. It literally just breaks up the entire pace of the game. It is awful. Oh, and you're going through a sewer. In the base game, it's an annoying enough section, but it's not very long. It's, I don't know, maybe 10 minutes. In this game, it's over an hour going through this sewer. And there's no reason for it to be that long at all. Oh, and then you have to go back to the sewer for some stupid ass reason for another hour, dude. It's really, really annoying. And this is the thing, right? I am totally fine with this stuff being added and this stuff being extended if it adds to the quality of the game. I always say this, you could probably see this line, me talk about this in every single one of my reviews. If you add something to a game, it should be additive. It should be a benefit to the content, to the game. That is not the case in this situation, right? And all the times, like, listen, walking with Aerith, right? Previously in the original game, you're walking across these roofs, it's like 3 seconds and it's over, right? In this game, it is a long section where you're walking across the roof. But here's the thing, the reason why that's not filler, it's not padding, and I'm not complaining about it, is because you have a really good dialogue and you build a rapport with Aerith, and you start to, you know, get that relationship going. There's some funny moments in it, there's some great dialogue. So to me, that's not a waste of time because you're actually advancing a relationship, you're having a meaningful conversation that's important to the game, important to make you care about the characters. That's not padding to me. I love the walk on the rooftop. You know what I didn't like? Going through the fucking sewer for over an hour just to get 2 scenes between Tifa and Aerith. That's it. That's all you got from the entire thing is 2 scenes between Tifa and Aerith, and they're like, hey, we're gonna be let's be friends now. And that's it, dude. Like, oh hey, you're worried about this thing? Yeah, I'm worried about this thing. Why would I not be worried about this thing? I mean, it's pretty obvious we should be worried about this thing. Oh yeah, I'm worried about the thing too. Don't worry, we'll stop the thing. And it's like, dude, nothing was gained from that hour. Literally nothing was gained from that hour. Then, after that, you spend an hour and a half messing with trains. Like, it makes no sense. You find out about these huge stakes that are going to happen. You're like, shit, we need to get there and stop that. And then you need to play 2.5 hours before you actually get to that point that you really care about. By going through and operating some trains, running on top of them and shit. It is just annoying, dude. Are there a couple good scenes? Sure, but those scenes could have been put in parts that were actually necessary for the game. My bad. There's just a lot of padding in this game, and it becomes very, very obvious that they realized, oh shit, dude, we've been working on this game for like fucking 5-7 years, God knows how long. We've been working on this game forever. People are gonna expect a long game. We need to give them at least a 40-hour experience or something like it. And they just extended shit that did not need to be extended for nearly as long. Sure, take a 5-minute scene and make it a 15-minute scene. Sure, you're tripling the length there, but don't take a 5-minute scene and make it an hour and a half. You know what I mean? That's just too much. There's not enough content there to really fully explore it. But like I said, some scenes are properly extended, like the walk on the rooftop with Aerith, that I thoroughly enjoyed. So it's sort of hit and miss, but at the end of the day, if this game was about 6 or 7 hours shorter, it would be a better video game, in my opinion. If they just condensed it, it would be a better video game. And it's to the point now where I'd like to play the game on hard mode, but I don't want to go through like 4 chapters that I can think of, 4 out of 18, 4 chapters just off the top of my head that are just a pain to play through, and they're just padding. I don't want to play through those 4 chapters, right? I don't want to do all the shitty side quests either. So it's kind of just one of those things, man. And it's honestly my best my biggest problem with the game. On top of that, there are a couple points in the game where characters do things that are directly against their character. I can't really get into it without talking about spoilers, and I don't want to spoil anything, but there are certain situations where something is happening to one character and you would expect other characters to be like, hey, stop, or try and help them, and they don't. They just fucking stand there and let shit happen, and then it's just like, oh, shit happened because nobody gave a shit that this character was going through this thing. Right in front of them, and was very vocal about it. It was very obvious. It just kind of goes against the characters and the bonds that you formed and how everybody's looking out for each other, except for when the plot doesn't want them to look out for each other because they need to add an additional hour onto the gameplay for dumb shit to happen. So that's kind of a minor thing, though. It only happens like 2 times that I can think of in the game. And no spoilers, but the ending is going to be super divisive on this game. It gets very Kingdom Heartsy, like very, very Kingdom Heartsy, to the point where I was just like, what is even fucking happening right now? Like, what is actually fucking happening right now? And why? That was a big thing for me, is like, why is this happening? Why didn't they just take the classic storyline and just put it in? But they didn't. That's totally their creative right to do so. I don't hate what they did. It led to an amazing final boss fight that I really, really liked, but some people won't like it. Some people will really fucking hate it, but that's just my thought. I didn't think it was that bad. Overall, all the pros and cons. I know this is a longer one. There's a lot of stuff I wanted to talk about. I wanted to really explain my viewpoint for any of the Final Fantasy, super nerds out there, so they could truly understand why it is that I'm, giving this rating to the game. I do not think this game in any way, shape, or form can be considered a 10 out of 10. I've seen people give it a 10 out of 10. This is not a 10 out of 10. Objectively, this game is not a 10 out of 10. There are too many objective flaws with the game to give it a 10 out of 10, right? Subjectively, if you're a big Final Fantasy fan, I have no doubt this game's going to be a 10 out of 10. And trust me, I have some games that are subjectively, for me, a 10 out of 10, right? But objectively, when I look at those games and I look at the issues that they have inherently within them, I can admit it's not a 10 out of 10, right? And I try and be objective with my reviews as much as possible and really just point out the issues with either the narrative or the technical issues. And so for me, there's too many issues for this to be a 10 out of 10. And in my eyes, there's 2 types of 10 out of 10. There's a story 10 out of 10, there's a gameplay 10 out of 10. A story 10 out of 10 is a game like The Last of Us, where the narrative is so perfect. There's no extra bits. It is so perfect. Everything has its place. It is a fantastic story, to the point where it is a 10 out of 10. Even though the gameplay is, not the best or not the most innovative, I still think Last of Us 1 is a 10 out of 10 because the narrative is so strong. Then there's a game that excels in the gameplay department. This is a game that's a 10 out of 10 like Doom 2016. Where the shooting aspects and everything that the game is and the gameplay is just perfect. I wouldn't change a thing. It is absolutely perfect, and that's a game that's a 10 out of 10 for me, because sure, while the story isn't the most enticing, the gameplay is perfect. This game, Final Fantasy VII Remake, is not a 10 out of 10 in terms of story due to the padding and extra stuff, and it's not a 10 out of 10 in the gameplay department due to the awful camera and aerial enemies, and also because of some of the padding impacts the gameplay as well. So at the end of the day, I think this is still a strong video game. I actually thoroughly enjoyed it. I beat the game within like 3 or 4 sessions, I want to say. I really played hardcore on this game. I really liked it. So I would give it a solid 8 out of 10. I think this game can definitely be in the talks for Game of the Year. Now, I don't think it's going to be Cyberpunk, and I don't think it's going to be Last of Us 2 in the general populace eyes or like Game Award eyes. But I think this is a very, very good video game. I thoroughly enjoyed it. In case you don't know my rating scale, for me, a 5 out of 10 is an average game. right? And 6 out of 10 is above average, 7 out of 10 is a good game, and an 8 out of 10 is a great game. I think Final Fantasy VII is a great game. It has its flaws, most definitely. There's no doubt about it. And because of that, I don't believe you can give this game a 10 out of 10. And I think it's just a little bit too far from being a 9 out of 10, which is an amazing game. 10 out of 10, you know, that's like a perfect video game to me. So I think 8 out of 10 is really solid for Final Fantasy VII Remake. I thoroughly enjoyed most of my time playing this game. And it's one of those things where I'm gonna have fond thoughts about Final Fantasy VII now. Previously, I would have had really negative thoughts because I did not like the classic, but now I have an attachment to these characters. They're more fleshed out than ever before, and I really, really am excited to play part 2 with them and just spend more time with them, man, because it's so much fun doing that. It's so much fun hearing everybody talk and just being part of that world with them. So I'm very excited. I hope they learn from their mistakes in the next title, and maybe that one will be a 10 out of 10. I don't know. But thank you everybody so much for watching. I do indeed appreciate it. Have a fantastic rest of your day. I'll see all of you in the next video, or Surf Share Movie. Bye-bye.